This was a very cool chapter, and we wound up getting to meet, informally, I guess you would say, the head of Gourmet Corp, as well as the president of Igo.
Toriko, Gourmet number 101, Acacia's disciples.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters and fellow food enthusiasts and those that are training to go to the gourmet world in the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and marvelous, appetite-inducing tale of Toriko. Now, our last chapter, and I know it's been a little while, I apologize for that, but our last chapter, of course, technically ended off the Century Soup or Ice Hell arc, and really just kind of ended off with wrapping everything up in a nice, neat little bow. Komatsu, of course, is being recognized now as this world-renowned chef for having actually recreated the Century Soup. And really the end of it I thought was very cool, because we know that obviously Gourmet Corp wound up getting a hold of the actual original Century Soup that there was. So we wind up seeing at the end of the chapter, Al winds up coming up and he's presenting to the boss. And I had made a mistake thinking that was the head chef Kuromato, but apparently there's a higher up dude, there's a boss, and we don't really see him, we just kind of see him from the back and sort of like this throne and what have you, and he's presenting him the Century Soup. So that's where things leave off, and that's actually right where things pick up. The first few pages actually are kind of cool. We wind up getting just a little bit of dialogue between the two, and although they don't formally introduce us to this this boss of Gourmet Corp, he just looks really cool and really imposing, just sort of this dark figure, sort of cloaked in black, and obviously it's the blacks and the white and everything like that you have that kind of add to it, but very, very cool stuff. He has this, the part of his throne looks like it's like skulls and things like that, Anyway, he winds up asking, as he obviously takes a sip of the soup and what have you, and, Al asks him, did you enjoy it? Did you this? And he's kind of nervous around him, clearly, right? And he says, Elfaro, of everyone in Gourmet Corp, how many are ready to go to the gourmet world, And Al winds up saying, he goes, well, the head chef, Kuromato, I'm assuming obviously Al himself, and then of course Starjin, Grinpatch, Tommy Rod, and then a couple of the other heads as well. So probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 guys are qualified to, right? Anyway, he winds up going and saying, all right, listen, here's the deal, okay? He just takes that sip of the soup and then he says, distribute this out amongst everybody else. And work on getting as many people as you can powered up and kind of ready for the gourmet world. We're going to focus only on ingredients and things like that are like gourmet world worthy, that are things that I'm assuming originally came from maybe the gourmet world or what have you. And then he goes and just kind of poof, just disappears, right? And Al's kind of like, what the hell? He's like, what's the deal with him? The Century Soup is supposed to make you smile for days, and if you remember all the silly grins that Komatsu and everybody else had when they had this, because it was just so pure, so potent, so good, and you barely even noticed that he did it. There was very little effect on him, right? And I was like, so did it? But clearly he powered up from it. It kind of gave him a little bit of juice, but didn't bring a smile to his face, not a change of tone, nothing, So anyway, Al's kind of like, all right, he's contemplating that. And then we go and we're taken to somewhere. We have no idea where. There's these steps that kind of come up on this isle, this little island, I guess it's laid out, with a house on the end of it. And Toriko comes walking up from these subterranean steps and is greeted by somebody kind of like a butler or whatever that goes and sees him into this house. And Toriko makes some mention of, a fish that's in the display tank. And he thinks that it's actually there to eat, And as soon as the guy starts explaining it, it's not. Toriko's like, if it's not food, I don't give a shit. Anyway, what he does, he winds up going out on, like, the deck, the terrace, the veranda, whatever you want to call it, and he winds up meeting with this this older gentleman, right? And he's introduced as the president of Igo, right? And his name is Ichiryu. And Ichiryu is actually pretty cool looking, man. I kind of like the look to him. He almost reminds me of like a Hulk Hogan, type wrestler or whatever. Just kind of this bigger, older dude. But he sort of reminds me of this Hawaiian shirt that he's got on. Like, even though it's in black and white, I just picture him like kind of having that like wrinkly skin, sort of like the like too tan type of deal, like the older folks, the retirees that go down to Florida. That's kind of what I picture him as. And then of course he's got this little mustache, kind of like a little handlebar mustache that comes and hangs down. Anyway. So he winds up talking to Toriko, and pretty much is just asking him some questions. We find out that that Toriko and the other three kings, obviously Zebra and Coco and Sunny and Toriko, all wound up coming up or being raised around or maybe by this guy. I'm not really sure, because he talks about when you guys were kids and this and that. Anyway, he talks about how, you know, the ingredient God is what he winds up dropping, right? And we all know that this is important. We know that it's in the gourmet world. We know it's supposed to show up within the next few years, is the rumor. And this was obviously what, you know, was on the full course menu from Acacia, right? So as we find out a little bit more about it, and he's asking Toriko what he knows about it and this and that, you know, Toriko basically just goes and kind of pokes fun at him and says, listen, dude, you're because he says that about how the four kings are going to be kind of like the next generation to sort of take over the gourmet, you know, and everything like that, as the kind of like the leaders in the forefront of the gourmet age, you know. And Toriko's like, what are you talking about, old man? You're flabby, you have your meals delivered to you, you're retired now, you don't have anything to do with none of this stuff, right? And he's like, oh yeah, you little whelp. So he wants to challenge Toriko to a fight. We also wind up finding out, though, too, which I thought was pretty cool, is that himself and his master, or not his master, I'm sorry, himself, as well as Knocking Master Jiro, that's what I meant to say, and the current head of the Gourmet Corp, all three of them were actually disciples of Acacia. And, you know, and apparently they must be hundreds and hundreds, or if not thousands of years old. And I thought that was pretty interesting, you know. So that's kind of how he knows a little bit about this and whatnot. And he even says about how Acacia kept his full course meal even from them, because he knew that the ingredient God could end a war, but it could also start a war, right? And Toriko's like, what? Start a war, you know? Anyways, and as all that progresses, by the end of the chapter, after Toriko's insulted him, you know, pretty good, he's like, oh yeah, let's go toe to toe. Don't hold back. And Toriko goes, you know, so they both kind of go to Hulk up, and I'm thinking, oh shit, man, Toriko's gonna get his clock cleaned by this dude. I can just feel it. I just feel it, you know. All in all, though, very cool chapter, and a neat start, I guess you would say, to the next arc over here that we're in. So, very, very good stuff. My chapter question for you, brothers and sisters, is certainly, what are your thoughts on the boss of Gourmet Corp and that kind of interaction that he had, you know, just briefly with Alfaro, as well as the introduction of the president of Gourmet, or of the IGO. I'm sorry, I keep getting them turned around for some reason. I know the differences. I just, for some reason, on my tongue, I get tied with them. But Ichiryu. And what are your thoughts on Ichiryu? And then, of course, the head of Gourmet Corp. I don't know what to call him yet, because I don't know his name. So leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
Thank you for watching. Now go get a snack and then come subscribe to my other channels.